Our next speaker was inspired from an early age as a child, witnessing his father's work at the Queensland Agricultural College. Geoff Bahnisch received both an academic education and practical experience during holiday time spent on a family-owned farm in Central Queensland with beef. Writing and teaching has been in his blood since a young man, and of course moving his family to Western Emerald, I understand. He became a teacher himself. He's now sharing that knowledge through the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries as the Program Manager for Farm Resilience Program. Please welcome Geoff Bahnisch to the stage.
Thanks very much for that introduction, Kim. You did a much better job of it than I would have. But no, I did grow up in southeast Queensland. My father was the youngest of 5 kids. They grew up on the Darling Downs, small property. His eldest brother, who was 10 years older, ended up with the farm, and he took up the opportunity to take up a brigalow block in Central Queensland. So my father went down the education route. He ended up teaching for a long time at QAC, it was at the time, later UQ Gatton. And I followed in his footsteps. I always had aspirations of having a property of my own, but pretty tough these days. You need to be either born into it or have a very high income, and I had neither. So I did actually live in CQ in Mackay, so it's really nice to come back to Mackay. My first job after finishing was actually on a Natural Heritage Trust funded program with the DPI at the time, looking at reclaiming and sustaining productivity of Queensland bluegrass downs. That was in 1997, and that time it had been really dry, and the Downs country, as John mentioned in his very good and comprehensive presentation earlier, it holds on to a lot of water. So it had been dry for a long period of time, and the Downs country that was previously grasslands really resembled a cultivated field. So my role in that project was to monitor the change over 3 years in the condition of that country. So there were virtually no perennial grasses. Fortunately, those clay soils are a little bit more resilient, and there are a lot of annual grasses and forbs that are able to provide ground cover, early successional species that provide ground cover. So it was really interesting to the development of those pastures once it did finally rain. I noticed on the drive over here from Emerald Day, Nebo always seems to miss out, and this year's no different. So it's really nice to be back here in Mackay, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. So the program that I'm involved in at the moment is the Farm Business Resilience Program. So just what I'm going to talk about today, I'll provide an overview of the Farm Business Resilience Program and industry-specific projects. So I was a second choice here today. Neil Cliff, who's the manager of the Drought and Climate Adaptation Program with the Queensland Government, he was going to be here, but he's flying out for a South American trip later today. So I'm the second choice backup. Shireen was also in the program. Unfortunately, she was unable to make it, so I'm filling in. Next, I'll go through what's included in a Farm Business Resilience Plan and how this is related to soils. So John's presentation today earlier is a great prelude to what I'm going to be talking about, because it's really the foundation. So this program is really about how you put all these things together. So the soils are the foundation, and the land types that you're working with, how do we utilise that effectively to build a sustainable business and support a livelihood. So it's all people and how they utilise the resources they have available. I'll provide a bit of an overview of the new Queensland Government drought assistance. So, can you just raise your hand if you're familiar with the changes to the drought support? One person? So there's a couple, but not too many. So there's been a landmark change to drought support in Queensland. So I'll provide a bit of an overview of that, and it seems not too many people are aware of it. We'll look briefly at the current drought situation in Queensland, and finally I'll highlight that there's a new program, Small Business Wellness Coaches, which focus on the psychological aspect and mental health, which is very important in the times that we live in. So firstly, the Farm Business provides information and training to improve drought preparedness, including help to prepare a farm business resilience plan. So it's holistically putting all that information together, coming up with an individual tailored plan for businesses. So highly related to your question there about where do you start, how do we put it together, and where are we going in the future. So it's delivered through partnerships with the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries and Industry. I'll talk more about that shortly. And it's co-funded through the Future Drought Fund and the Queensland Government. So it's a magnificent opportunity here. It's a 4-year program. The funding collectively is about $34 million. So it's a very significant opportunity to create some real change across the agricultural industries in Queensland through supporting producers. So the specific focus areas included within the program, and that's really hard to read, I'm sorry, but you'll notice natural resource management and soils are one of the underpinning focus areas. There's a strong focus on risk management, and so that's risk management across the board. So it's funded by the Future Drought Fund. There is a focus on drought, but also other risks that businesses encompass, so financial risks, biosecurity risks. So being alert, not alarmed, is the current theme, but biosecurity is obviously a fairly significant risk at the moment. Business planning and personal and social resilience. So they're the areas. So we're looking to work with existing providers. It's a pretty crowded space, so we're not looking to compete with existing services in that area, rather partner with other providers. So the sort of support that you get from reef catchments would be valuable in terms of natural resource management area of planning. So I thought I'd put up some participant feedback. So this is actually feedback from people who participated in the horticultural industry. So they've said the Farm Business Resilience Plan has been a great benefit to us in planning for the future of our farm. Previously we would make some notes and a lot of information was stored in our heads, but by doing the plan, it's made us look deeper into what we were doing and given us a broader view to the future planning of the farm. It's helped us to think of new ideas to improve our energy and water efficiency and develop better programs to help the environment and reduce soil moisture loss in our soils. We also have a better view on how to focus on the immediate needs for the farm. So that's pretty good feedback. Notice they're talking strongly about the relationship with their soils, opportunities for improving them and reducing moisture loss. So we've heard from John, maintaining ground cover is key, maintaining soil organic matter and trying to maintain or improve soil carbon levels, also key. That's good for the business, good for the environment, and it's also good for drought management. If you can hold more water, then you're going to make much better use of that fall or irrigation water that's. So another lot, after completing the Farm Business Resilience module, a couple of things stood out. A need to improve in certain areas. We've increased our water storage capacity and irrigation system. However, an increased understanding of the soils and hydrology on the property could indicate the new areas for future crops and optimising land use efficiencies. So highly related to discussions that we've already had today. So just a quick overview of the program. I'm guessing, so can you stand up if you're a current agricultural producer? Awesome. So can you raise your hand if you're in the grazing industry? Just so I can see. Ooh, so the majority. Cane industry? A few. Horticulture industry? Oh, some are in both. Okay, so largely grazing, some cane, and a few in both, and some horticulture. So thanks for that. Can you remain standing if you've got a developed business plan? Documented. Okay, so we've got a couple people. So you can sit down now. Thanks for that. So there's an opportunity here for you guys to get an incredible amount of support to develop a plan for your future and for the future of your business. So that's pretty standard. Across the board, it's estimated that about 30% of producers have documented business plans. The National Farmers Federation has an objective by 2030 of 90% of producers having business plans. So we've got a fair way to go. I think one of the valuable things about having a documented business plan is it sets a direction, and it's a really valuable communication tool. So people have often heard failing to plan is planning to fail. It's not quite that bad, but it certainly helps if you've got a plan, and it's a really valuable communication tool. So those 6 projects, the ones most relevant to you, Grazing Futures Livestock Business Resilience Project. It's a big project across the state supporting livestock producers. They're in partnership with the Rural Financial Counsellors. So as well as DAF roving economists. So Emily Crow at the back there from DAF, she's part of that team that support the grazing industry. So they run around and support producers to look at alternatives for their properties. The Rural Financial Counsellors are also able to assist and support producers in the grazing industry, which is a really great opportunity. The Rural Financial Counsellors love it because they can work proactively with people. Normally, to get the services of a Rural Financial Counsellor, people need to meet financial need or hardship requirements, whereas through this program, they're able to work with producers and facilitate a process that leads to developing a plan for their business, irrespective of their financial position. So it's a wonderful opportunity, putting together both the Agriscience Queensland or DAF production staff, Rural Financial Counsellors, as well as their NRM groups that have partnered in this program. So the grazing industry is incredibly well catered for. The other 2 that are most relevant to you, cane growers. So cane growers is running a project for the cane industry. They're rolling that out through their business essentials for cane growers workshops, together with, they're doing some succession planning and transition management workshops soon, but they're looking after the cane industry. They're also in the process of securing support to assist individuals with their plans. So the cane industry is well catered for, and resilience planning for horticulture is being managed by GrowCom. So they're utilising the Hort 360 program, which is the horticulture industry best management practices program, and rolling it out through that. So they've got resilience facilitators that across the state who are working individually with producers, as well as running workshops. So essentially, the overall framework of the program is to take a holistic look at where the business currently is across the board. So across all areas, people, land resources. So conducting a land resource assessment or taking stock of the different land resources that you have available to you on your property, mapping them and looking at the potential for future development or best management practices for each of the land types is a key aspect. Looking at the climate, both past, present and future, and looking at what the likely outcomes might be for the future. Marketing is a key aspect. Financial, so we've been in a period of incredibly low interest rates, high property prices, high commodity prices. So things have been great, but things are starting to turn a little bit. The interest rates are rising, property prices are still high, commodity prices are still good. Just need a plan for whatever might happen in the future. Looking at the production systems, how are you managing your different land types on the property? How are you utilising it to best achieve a return, as well as the physical infrastructure? And succession and succession's coming up a lot at the workshops around the state as a key issue. So we're all familiar with the average age of people in rural industry across the board. So they're conversations that are happening all around the state. It's a key issue with the average age of farmers getting older. They're supporting people to look at that transition and work through it. So the first step is to conduct that situation analysis, look at the strengths, weaknesses and opportunities going forward, whatever they might be. So you might be running down the path of looking at alternative farming systems, converting to organic, whatever the goals for the business might be, this program provides an opportunity for them to facilitate that. Development of a plan, so we don't actually assess it or accredit it. This program's linked with the Queensland Government Drought Assistance, which I'll talk about very shortly. That's the process in which there might be some assessment of the plan. So it's basically a plan for you and your business. So very quickly, this is what's included in the Farm Business Resilience Plan. It's a holistic summary of the business, where it is, what are the motivating factors, why are you in the business, and what are you hoping to achieve, what are the goals for the future in relation to each of the key areas, how do you currently manage risks, and how might you manage risks in the future. Workplace health and safety has come up a lot at workshops that we've held around the place, because it's quite a challenge, isn't it, for rural industry, given that we had an exemption initially from the Workplace Health and Safety Act, which no longer applies. A lot of businesses are probably reasonably exposed. Some aren't. The big corporates seem to do it, but it's a challenge for most small businesses. I always think about, there was a person in the grazing industry, Raging Quality Meats, they ran, his name alludes, Lachlan Hughes. Their family did everything, like they were in best management practices programs, good workplace health and safety practices, vertically integrated business. He fell off a windmill. So even if you're doing everything right, the wrong things can still happen. And it's awful from a workplace health and safety perspective. You can be in the business, you can have a workplace accident, and potentially the rest of the family can be fined for inappropriate work practices. So you're facing the loss of a loved one at the same time as potentially criminal being fined or worse. So managing the risks, look at how we're managing risks, how we currently manage dry conditions and drought. Bit ironic that we're talking about drought at the same time as the state is receiving pretty good rainfall. But if you think about it, the best time to prepare for the next drought is when there are good conditions. It's a bit of a hard message to sell to people, but the reality is you're much better preparing for dry conditions when the conditions are good than waiting till it's all upon you. And then new actions and implementation plans to improve the business. And then there's a review cycle. So it's an ongoing cycle of plan, implement, action, review, go again. So there's a number of ways that producers are supported to develop a plan. Some people have a plan. So we've got 2 people here who have a plan. So you could just use your existing plan and maybe get some support if required. If not, that's great. There is a farm management grant that's available for producers to get support to develop a plan, or and I'll talk about that a little bit later, or you could participate in these program activities. So there are some resources there. I think this presentation will be made available, so you can have a look at them, but there are some resources on the DAF website as well as links to those industry projects. So now I was just going to talk about the new Queensland Drought Assistance, which only a couple of people knew about. So this, the Farm Business Resilience Program is aligned with the reforms to the Queensland Drought Assistance. So the new Queensland Drought Assistance is available to all industries, and so it's not subject to drought declarations or financial hardship criteria, ineligibility for commercial finance. It's really about proactive drought preparedness, about supporting producers to prepare their businesses for the inevitable drought periods. So this is we've been running around the state doing workshops on this, and they're 2-hour workshops, so I'm not going to cover it all that comprehensively, but essentially a farm business resilience plan is required as a precursor for any of these drought support products. The farm management grant I mentioned a minute ago, it's a rebate of up to $2,500, so 50% rebate for advice pertaining to the development of a plan or to develop a plan. So as some of those people identified, soils is a key area. You might utilise some money to get a consultant to have a look at your soil management systems. So that'd be eligible under the grant. The thing is, you have to present a completed farm business resilience plan in order to get the money. The drought preparedness grant, there's been a huge amount of interest in that. It's a rebate of up to 25% of up to $50,000. So that's for capital improvement projects that meet the eligibility requirements. So it's a significant, it provides significant assistance for producers who identify projects that are eligible under the guidelines. So, as I said, capital improvement projects. To date, most of those have related to water infrastructure, so it could be improved irrigation practices and equipment, feed storage, or additional water points. They're the main areas that people have utilised that grant for. And then there's drought ready and recovery loans up to $250,000. So you can use that loan to fund the co-contribution towards the grant. So the eligibility requirements really quickly for that. You need to be a primary producer, say more than 50% of your income and 50% of your time has to come from primary production. So there is a whole lot of other detail related to it that I can't go into now, but it's well worth it having a look at that. I believe there's been some cane farmers from this region or maybe a little bit north who have been successful in getting those grants. I'll move on. So just quickly, the current drought situation in Queensland. These are drought declared shires, mainly in the west. Part drought declared in Whitsunday and Isaac shires. So currently, even though it's been raining fairly well, 40% of the state is currently still drought declared. So anyone who's accessed the DRAS program in the past, which was the old scheme, the reactive freight subsidies, etc., that continues for this drought. So it hasn't just been removed. If you access the new drought support, you're ineligible for the the old DRAS system going forward, and you can't have accessed DRAS in the last 6 months. So there are some other criteria related to the new support. So anyone who's in a drought declared area has an option of transitioning to the new system. You just can't go back. Or continuing with the existing. We went around the state talking about drought, and it was really, and talking about these drought reforms. So we met with people in Longreach, for example. There was someone who hadn't had cattle or no livestock on his property for 2 years. So 2 years he'd had animals on agistment near Roma. He was just lucky that the market has been with him. So he was able to make money while he'd had those livestock on agistment. Similarly, on the Darling Downs, went there was a producer there who broke down because his best friend had committed suicide. The last thing he did was try to apply for drought assistance, and it wasn't working out. Couldn't get it done. His wife went shopping. While his wife was shopping, he took a gun, went down and shot himself. So it's just a good lead into the next slide, which is this small business wellness coaches. So this is a fantastic service that's offered by the state government now, which is available to all small businesses, including primary producers. So if you're aware of someone who's struggling, and there are many reasons why people may be struggling, then, and it doesn't matter, it's either the business owner or direct family members who are employed by the business. This wellness coaches program is a good opportunity and well needed in regional areas where access to medical support is a bit challenging. I went to make a doctor's appointment in Emerald yesterday, and the doctor they normally go to, next appointment was 19 days away. So in regional communities it's a bit challenging. So these people are able to link people up with appropriate support, as well as provide support to people if in need. So I think it's worth mentioning that really valuable service. So I'll pull up there a couple of minutes short.
Actually, you're only 1 minute out
1 minute
from the end of your presentation time, so very well done.
Nailed it.
How about some questions from the audience?
Yeah, a couple of years ago we did a farm management plan, and they brought up this grant part, but when we went to the advisors to go through our plan, they knew less than what we did. And then we wanted to go to like Kim, he was advising us at the time. They couldn't accept the people that we wanted that had more knowledge than they did. So it was just, like a bad example. But as your new system is coming, we're getting more better advisors into our farm management system. Yeah,
well, for that, the farm management grant, the 2,500 rebate, if people spend 5,000, they can get up to 2,500 back. We haven't been prescriptive about who those consultants are, so we've left it up to individuals to determine who they want to utilise and what information is necessary for them to, it's going to best meet their needs. So as long as the invoice is from an advisor and it indicates that it's for advice pertaining to the development of a farm business resilience plan or to develop a farm business resilience plan, and you present a plan, then it's out. We haven't made any specific requirements around the consultants that people use specifically for that reason. So we understand that you're in a position to determine the needs of your business and what advice is going to be most relevant to your production systems, your business, and where you hope to go in the future. So, yeah, we haven't been specific. So if you feel that going to Kim or Tim would be the best advice for your business,
Yeah,
then
well,
that'd be
in the
acceptable.
past we couldn't do that, so we just have to keep going with our. We couldn't get any help from that section.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a great feature, I think, of this support, is it enables people to choose where they get the assistance from. That comes with a double-edged sword, though. You've got to be a little bit careful, because some people might have pretty strong ulterior motives. So we have had some people who have been guaranteeing people that they will get a drought preparedness grant if they prepare the plan for them, and you really can't guarantee that. So you've got to be a little bit careful.
Hi, Tegan McBride. I'm not here to ask a question, but to introduce myself. I'm the new QRider rep, so if anyone's looking to put in an application for one of those grants, the drought preparedness grant or the farm management grant, you can come and get in touch. I've got some cards here, so hi.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Tegan. Sorry I didn't make contact with you earlier. I would have mentioned you. Lara will be presenting later in the workshop today on legumes, which is a key component of, or a key opportunity for people if they haven't incorporated legumes into their systems.
Tina Titley's my name, country at Proserpine and out at Winton. The question I have is, how are these programs actually capturing those people that are doing the wrong thing by their land and their animals that are causing us the RSPCA and land erosion problems? How is this program and the change in the drought assistance going from the old program where it was just propping those people up and encouraging them to keep going, doing the wrong thing by assisting them with their fodder, with their transport, etc., etc. How is this program really going to change that mentality of people that what they're doing the old ways don't work anymore and it's not acceptable?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I think it's something that Gilly and her team struggle with, or it's a challenge for all of us, I guess. One of the really positive things about this is the focus on drought preparedness and holistic business planning, as opposed to reactive support and supporting people, like you said, to essentially do practices that probably aren't the best practices. So.
Are they really getting to the nuts and bolts of it with these people to be able to change or see them, have them see it from a different angle rather than, you know, yes, here's your drought plan and it looks all great on paper. You can get your 50% rebate now because you filled out the plan the way that, you know, it should be. But is there follow-up coming from that as well?
Yeah, so they're working with producers. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So I guess all we're trying to do is create an environment where people have the opportunity to prepare rather than be reactive, and to support those producers who are being proactive. The financial counsellors, in the case of the grazing industry, are really facilitating the process, and they're supporting producers with the questions that they need to ask. They're not providing the answers, they're facilitating the process. So it's a bit like a journey of discovery. So they might lead people to appropriate resources, but essentially the producers take ownership of the plan. It's their plan. The drought preparedness grant, there needs to be a really clear line of sight between the proposed activities and a drought preparedness outcome for the business. And QRider is in an excellent position to advise in relation to eligibility for the drought preparedness grant. But certainly we've set it up to try and, instead of putting money out there to support bad practices, we've set it up to try and support activities that are going to be proactive and self-resilience going forwards.
Yeah, just with that, you know, the long paddock forage assessment, and, you know, you've got the reef regs, but you've got the same bad impact having effect in the inland, just to a different spot without a reef. You know, to keeping that, it's encouraged them with their drought practice to, or their farm management plan to keep their ground cover. And, you know, we get the big stick over us all the time. It's, you know, for those people that have got leasehold land, you know, there has to be some benchmarks for those people, or for all graziers, or all across it all, so that there's some real correlation going in full circle, not just here's one piece of the information, here's the other, and here's the other. You know, like that holistic approach with our soil and our cattle, etc. But it be throughout the whole of Australia, not just certain sections. You know, that's what's frustrating from a grazier's point of view, where, you know, we're in different places or different environments, but the same bad effect is happening out there. You know, like the gullies are getting bigger, their roads are going from roads and tracks to bloody rivers, just from bad management. And it's just trying to, you know, really get government to understand, you know, they've got to work with those people to change their mindset. And I agree, it's a pretty big brick wall to try and have to bash through, but they've got to start.
Yeah.
And hopefully this helps.
Yep. So that's exactly what we're trying to achieve, and there's $34 million there, as I said, over 4 years, and that's exactly the objective, is to try and support people to make those changes rather than the big stick approach.
We can take one more question if anyone else has a succinct question and would like an answer before we get Geoff done. It's like a silent auction. Please thank Geoff Bahnisch for giving us all of that information today. Thanks, Geoff.
Thanks very much for the opportunity to be here.